Welcome to Off the Post, powered by Coverall Exteriors. I'm Russ Cohen. We've got Anthony Mingione. And how are you?
It was a pretty busy week, wasn't it, Russell?
Oh, yeah. 4 games a day, a few more today. Definitely a busy week. I'm here in Pittsburgh, and it's been fun. And we have Michael Jello. Mike, how are you?
I love the world.
So you're joyful this morning?
Yeah, for about 3 seconds. And then I turned to my usual bitter self. Thank you.
3 seconds of joy, better than no joy. That's it.
23 hours, 59 minutes, and 57 seconds of bitterness.
A parting of the great clouds, let's say.
Yeah. What's even better? I'm enjoying. All right. Anyhow, let's get started. I'll give a quick Fall Classic report. I'm really just going to do an overview in the sense that I feel like it may have been overblown, like with everything going on with NCAA hockey and Canadian Hockey League and everything, that the USHL was going to kind of lose out and become weaker. And I think they've lost out on a few stars, but honestly, they've got, just from what I saw this weekend, and other guys will drop in during the year, they've got at least 3 first rounders, maybe 4. One will be in the top 5 in Tynan Lawrence. You got Jack Hextall, who'll be top 15. Blake Zielinski.
Yeah, he looked good. Jack looked good.
Yeah, Blake Zielinski sneaks into the first round, I think, a Berlin, New Jersey kid, local kid. So the talent's here. And there's a lot of 27s. Like I interviewed a few 27s, 2027 draft. So, and I spoke to an assistant GM, and the teams don't feel like that's the case. And there are like probably 150 scouts here. So I don't think it's a problem.
No, I'm going to say, again, I look at it as, I know we've talked about now, do I think it's Canadian juniors are going to be affected? But again, I also look at it and say, if a star player ends up going to the NCAAs, it does open up opportunities for other players that could be stars that we just haven't, that we may not have had a chance to see, that a spot might not have been available for them at a more high profile program. And now if those things open up, that's something that, to keep in mind.
Well, something that someone told Russ and I when we were at the Combine, I don't think it's proprietary at all, is that they think that the CHL will be okay simply because it'll just become a younger league. It'll become a 16, 17, maybe 18-year-old league. And then if these players have an opportunity to go in and cash in on the NIL money in the NCAA, they'll do so. We know that like everything right now in the NCAA is sort of in flux. We know that there is some talk. I did see something in the last few days about them.
And for those, Mike, who are not familiar with why everything is in flux, what's the reason why it's in flux?
Well, that was what I was going to say. But there is talk about the NCAA limiting the NIL window to I think it's like once a year or at a certain point. And I think that, see, I am against a player. I'm okay. If you're a player and you don't like the situation that you're in, you should be like Keon Coleman from the Bills. He was at Michigan State. I think he played basketball and football, and he transferred to Florida State. Okay, that's fine. But there are players who are going to be drafted in the NFL, in the NHL, in the NBA that are going to be on 3 colleges in 4 years. That's friggin' ridiculous.
Yeah, it's been it's been the Wild West, that there's no kind of commitment to get to develop within a program. And then if this is your experience already, 3 years of this, when you get to the pros and you're now committed to a contract here and you don't like the way things are going, there's such a thing as a bit of mental preparation with regards to.
Yeah, I think they're gonna redo some of that.
It just can't be. It's just not. Again, as you know, Russ, it's not a sustainable thing for any program to have to constantly deal with this every single year. It's a lot.
I agree, but like 2 beneficiaries, I watched a kid, Arseny Marchenko. This guy's 6'6", a defenseman who's from Minsk, and he's playing in the USHL. And so you do wonder, like, hey, is he one of those guys that he came to the USHL because of all this? He plays for Fargo, and guy's pretty good. and I'm going to watch him because at 6'6",
And hasn't Youngstown in the past? The Youngstown fans, I think, have brought in quite a few.
They brought a few in too.
Over the years, I remember seeing quite a few guys who had signed on with that had signed on.
Yeah, but it's one of those. It's one of those things now where I'm seeing more. Mike, just from a Sabres perspective, Marek Novotny looks good. Yeah. I like what I've seen. He played in Sweden last year. And, there's missing parts of his game, but the offensive part is really good. And he's already more than a point a game. Melvin Novotny, more than a point a game. So I don't care that he's a 7th rounder. Like when I come here to see guys, I'm watching the 7th rounders the same as the 1st rounders. The interesting part is I didn't get to talk to him, but he wears number 68. So I'm assuming he's wearing that because of Yager. So he's not Jaromir Jagr, but he could be a 3rd liner, maybe.
No, and I mean they at the development camp last week, Michael Leone, the Amherst head coach, who used to be head coach in Green Bay in the USHL, he was talking about that he thought the best line in the tournament were the 3 USHL players, Novotny being one of them. So I mean, I think he's got some talent. I mean, we'll see over.
He does.
That's the thing. It's like all these guys, they're going to be funneled through the NCAA system. And it's weird because the Sabres, the Sabres seem to be tied to Youngstown. Like Luke Osborne, their 4th round pick from a couple years ago, he went through Youngstown. Now he's going to Wisconsin. There have been a few that have gone to Michigan State. So I don't know, maybe it's the proximity of Youngstown.
I was going to say proximity probably in that case. It's not too far. So yeah,
but like Green Bay is usually a feeder for Wisconsin, like things like that. So sometimes it's connected to the actual college. Sometimes it's connected to the pro organization. So but I think the USHL will survive. It just may have to morph into something different.
Yeah, no, it's definitely doing well. Like the only thing is, do I think the NCDP will beat the CHL All-Stars? Probably not. It's a decent team, but I don't think they're going to win that game. So that 2-game series in Alberta. So aside from that, it's been fun to watch. And Austin Moline looks pretty good. He made a trip.
That was my next question for you. I know Moline literally went from he did the cross-state jaunt, basically going from Flyers camp in Voorhees all the way over to Pittsburgh to rejoin his team, and was starting on defense.
He started on defense. He looked good. He had a good game. Yeah, again, he's a guy that's going to take a while to develop, but he has some good tools. His offense is picking up a little bit. He's got good hockey sense. His speed has picked up just a little bit. I think it needs more. But considering he took a trip up the turnpike and then was starting in the game the next day, that's pretty good.
You and I got it. You had a chance to obviously. Well, no, you were not there, but you had seen him during rookie camp, right?
Yeah.
So you had made notes with regards to how he, how he looked, and we both saw him a little bit during the rookie camp game. So, it's one of those things where you're always looking at your high draft picks and mid round, but again, you also have your other guys that are deeper in that. This is what system depth is all about, basically.
Yeah, don't tell a 7th round pick he's a 7th round pick. He doesn't care. Once he's drafted, he's drafted.
No, once you're in, you're in. I mean, we know what the percentage odds are. We've talked about that, how many times.
Well, actually, there was a show. Unfortunately, when you scroll through Instagram, you don't get to see sometimes who the site is. But there was one who did a study, looked at a study. They didn't do it. They looked at a study of the hardest sports to break into, and hockey was the hardest. Because in the United States, now this is where they prefaced it. In the United States, only 1 in 4,000 kids will actually play in the NHL. Now, if it were Canada, it'd be much higher, right? But in the United States, so hockey ended up being the toughest. Basketball was 2, and I think baseball was 3.
Yeah. So I mean, it's it's part and parcel with kind of the discussions we always have about access and things of that sort. We've done that many a time, so we're not going to rehash that here. But it's one of those things where in order to get on the radar, you really have to do things to flash.
You got to have a leg up. You got to have your parents have to be willing to drive you around a lot, like you.
Yep.
Or like a story that Elliot Friedman relayed on his last podcast, like Anze Kopitar, who's retiring this year. He was at the rink in LA because his kids wanted to use the ice. I don't know if it's his daughter or son. I don't know how many kids he has, but that's why NHL players, it's not just genetics. NHL players have access and the revenue to be able to rent ice or let their kids play. And, like Max Domi, when he was a young kid, was skating on the Leafs ice with Matt Sundin. So I think that helped him a little bit in terms of advancing his skills.
Yeah, I have a 1-second story on Kopitar. It's kind of funny. When the All-Star game used to have the young stars, Kopitar was once one of those young stars. And I was at the Young Stars luncheon, and we were all standing up for whatever reason, I'm not sure. And I had played some pickup hockey the day before in Frisco, Texas, like on a rink, like on a half ice thing. And I was older already. I was probably like 40 something, and my legs were hurting. And I just looked at him. I said, Andre, can we do this interview sitting down? Because I played hockey yesterday and I'm kind of sore. And he loved that. Like, that gave me instant credibility with him. We had a great interview. But, it's amazing what players can do and what they turn into. And he's been tremendous.
Yeah, agreed.
So, yeah, we'll miss him. But I have a feeling he'll get into coaching. He seems like one of those guys that will probably do it at some point. Maybe not right away because his kids are small, like Mike said. But
I would say maybe. My guess is this is what probably will happen. The pretension is he is going back to Slovenia. He and his family are going to Slovenia. So I do wonder if they're looking at a few years there, and then maybe the Kings say to him, "Hey, would you like to do a little bit of scouting for us so you can keep yourself in it?"
Or they do what Nicholas Lidstrom is doing for the Red Wings. It's like, you're our assistant general manager, but you're based in Europe, and you fly over 4 or 5 times a year.
Do that, but again, that makes sense with the Red Wings, considering the fact obviously him and Steve Yzerman in that case,
and their Swedish connections.
Yeah, but I mean, you could do that. Does it have to be a assistant general manager type of position? I think Lidstrom actually has the intention of, I would think at some point here, maybe looking at climbing the ladder a little bit further if you're already as an assistant general manager. We'll see what happens with Kopitar, but at the very least, again, if it provides him flexibility to be a father, to help raise his kid, obviously raise his kids and be closer while still keeping his feet in the game for possible future opportunities, then we'll see where it goes. But it makes
a lot of fathers had kids in the USHL, some grandfathers now, some were Canadian, now they're American. Like, it's funny.
Yeah, it was pretty funny when you sent the message yesterday
about Parker Trottier.
And Brian in the crowd.
Brian's in the building.
Brian's in the building. Yep. Yeah, that's where we are now, dude.
Yeah. It's a crazy kind of thing.
We're officially, we're getting to the point now where we're 3 old guys now.
Yeah.
Shani. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but it's interesting for sure. But there's a lot of second generation guys, and I was watching Pat Maroon break in as a coach. He's a coach, watching his son's on his team. So there's a whole thing going on. Anyhow, moving on. Jonathan Toews making headlines. Here's what I would say. When I first broke in, I was covering the Rangers and an older Mark Messier. And right now, with Jonathan Toews being away from the game like he was, I'm treating Jonathan Toews the same way. And so that older Mark Messier, sure, he would win some faceoffs. Mm-hmm. He could, I think in his first couple of years, he was still getting 40, 50 points, but then it was dropping. He definitely provided leadership. But I'm not expecting a whole lot from Jonathan Toews. And I just feel like people should just wait and see what he looks like. Don't just jump off what you're seeing in camps.
My expectation of Jonathan Toews is that he can be a really, really solid third-line center for a team. If you're coming in thinking this is Jonathan Toews from 10 years ago, you're going to be you have to lower your expectations in that regard. He's trying again. You always want to, as you said, the Messier. I think he can be probably a little better in some ways. I think there's some potential offensive contribution, but I think it'll be relatively limited compared to the opportunities that are available. He's there to basically provide that, be almost in some ways like another coach on the ice with the amount of experience that he's had, the playoff wars he's been through. But the expectations have to be that, the body can only carry you so much. And he has to, I would say, at least certainly early on, you have to, be smart with his minutes, not to override, to ride him super hard, especially with multiple years being out. We've seen what happens certainly here in Philly when you have a player out almost 2 seasons with Sean Couturier with the back, and you might start off really well, but then things start to taper off. And again, Toews is older than Couturier in this case, so it would definitely be smart for them to be diligent with the minutes and being smart with the minutes.
I mean, we're talking about a 37-year-old player. I mean, this is like Guy Lafleur coming back after years off with the Canadiens, and he came back with the Rangers and the Nordiques, and he wasn't the same player. And I don't expect Toews to be the same player, but the thing is with the Jets, because Adam Lowry is out, and because he's probably going to be out until January, they're hoping, he can step. No. It depend on somebody like Nemestikov or Velarde if you want to play him at center as your 2C, and let Toews just sit in as that third center. I'm sure he can still check. If he can keep up with the speed of the game, I think he can do that. I think if you get 10 to 15 goals out of him, you should be happy. But to put on too much expectation when it comes to him, I think it's unfair to him.
Yeah, and again, we can talk a lot about certainly, him being out, and also, the things, his I guess you could say his health journey, so to speak, Russ. Things that he may has done, and maybe that kind of helps him early, certainly with readaptation early on. But invariably, when you're getting back to the pace of the National Hockey League after being away, I don't care how well physically tuned you think you are. Invariably, you're 37. Your body is not going to do what it did, in the prime of your career. So you have to be very smart, and the Jets have to be really smart with this too, because
they may have
you acquired him for 2 purposes. One, from the leadership perspective, without Lowry being there, that's a huge thing. A guy that that people respect automatically. But 2, having him ready for the playoff wars. That's the reason why you got him, because he's the kind of guy that can give you something in the playoffs that you need.
Yeah, they may have to limit his minutes and do some management that way. I agree. I think that's going to be a big thing. So also, we don't know if this is Evgeny Malkin's last year. He's like hoping it isn't. Like, I don't know, Evgeny. I'm sure if you want to sign somewhere, you can.
Yeah, it's your last year in Pittsburgh. Let's just stress that.
That's probably what it is.
Yeah.
I watched a few Pittsburgh practices. DraftKings, FanDuel has them at like 74 points. They're not getting 74 points. The only way they're getting 74 points is if they get a goaltender. So they're not. I'm telling you, I've seen
Shelovs though. Shelovs
doesn't matter. I saw the collection of players in camp there.
Yeah,
and Robbie Fabry included. Like now he's part of it. It's just not a good group. So
I think it's very much for
it's
Malkin,
a tank year. Like
it's a tank. You could say it looks like a tank.
No, it's a tank year.
It looks like a tank year. Of course, you have but of course you have Sid's comments and everything else about if we do this and we have this much cap space, and it's like, and if you're Kyle Dubas, you're saying to Sid, you're going to need to show me a lot this year as a team for me to go out and even moderately alter the course.
I mean, I said to
you hired Dan Muse because, again, you are preparing for the future.
Yeah, I said to a scout, it looks like a low-key tank year for them, and he went low-key like that. So
that's called industry. That's industry knowledge there in that circumstance. Everybody knows what they're seeing there.
You have a sieve of a starter in Tristan Jarry. So I mean, you're probably going to at worst have him play half your games. I don't know if you can load Svelovs, who's not a big goaltender.
It's going to be the next Hedberg, don't you know?
Yeah, I mean, I know that they and I was told by somebody they really like this Russian goaltender they have, Murasov, but he's not ready. And
everybody loves the Russian goaltender they have.
When they come over,
that Russian wild card goalie in the back pocket,
and they don't want to expose this guy to the shit that that this team is going to be the next year or two. So he's going to stay in Scranton, Wilkes-Barre and hone his skills. But that's the thing. This team is okay. Why do they go out and trade for Connor Clifton? Well, because they got a second-round pick. That's why. Because they gave him Connor Timmins, who the Sabres didn't want to. The Sabres ended up paying $1 million less. They dumped the $3.3 million Connor Clifton deal on the Penguins. The Penguins got bribed a second-round pick for the deal. So they're using their cap space, which they should. This is a team that's going to suck. They don't want to say it. Everybody knows it. I mean, they're probably gonna, they're gonna approach Sid closer to the deadline. Every insider will probably have CJ on the show and Julian and a few others, and we'll be talking about Sidney Crosby. Where is he gonna go? Because this team is a train wreck, and I don't see a turnaround like the Washington Capitals, because there's not enough there. And it's not just about Sid. It's not just about Malkin. It's Rust. It's Raquel. It's maybe Letang.
There's parts there.
There's tanks out there skating, so yeah.
Yeah, pieces are certainly out there, Mike. And I know Randy asking, does Crosby get traded? The answer to that question is when Sid says he's had enough, basically, is the answer to that question. And the way things are being arranged to the roster, the Penguins are basically telling him, well, if you want to stay, we're kind of doing other things. And
it's not going to hurt the feelings of the Penguins fans to see you go. They understand, because this team is crap. Now, you've won Stanley Cups. You have a great history. Mario Lemieux didn't go anywhere, but Ray Bourque did. Ray Bourque went to Colorado and won a Stanley Cup. I don't think Sidney needs to go someplace to win a Stanley Cup. That's why I do think, Russ, that, the number 2 center in Montreal and Sidney Crosby, that seems to be.
I still think it'll be Colorado.
I
don't think Crosby. I know Crosby grew up a fan of Montreal. I don't know if he really wants to get thrown in there towards the end of his career.
Listen, at the end of the day, Winnipeg also has an opening.
Remember, Crosby's a lot better than Vinny Lecavalier was at the time. But Lecavalier didn't want any part of going to Montreal.
Lecavalier, though, from the injury perspective, his back was already robbed at that point of any kind of real production.
Crosby,
you don't want to be embarrassed there, because it's a lot of pressure.
Crosby is still a top 10 player in this league. That's the funny thing.
No, I understand that, but Montreal's not. Montreal could be a really good playoff team, and they could not make the playoffs.
Well, no.
The only thing is in Montreal, and I was having conversations with a few people about it, and I concur. I am concerned about Montreal's overall toughness and grit. It would not shock me if Montreal had a step back this year.
Oh, come on. You have Arbor Jack eyes, so you're okay.
Yeah, I talk about toughness that actually can
play. And his brother, Mike. His brother's down below.
Florian.
I need somebody who can actually play. So I'm sorry if I'm a bit skeptical on Montreal. While it seems to a lot of people like a natural fit.
No, but there's possibility. Listen, that second line center. I think Kirby Doc's going to fill that role.
No, from a lineup perspective, does in the would he fit? Does it make sense? Would it help Montreal if they have ideas of competing for to really be competing this year? Yes, that doesn't mean necessarily it's going to be something that's going to happen.
Russ, I got some negative feedback from some Montreal fans. Gee, what a shock! Because I on the Hockey News podcast that I do, they had posed the question about Gorton and Kent Hughes getting contract extensions. I guess there are negotiations now, and whether they thought I thought they had done a good job. And I'm like, if you're talking about drafting, it's Demidov and Hudson and Slavkovsky. I think they, Reinbacher, they've done a pretty decent job. If you're talking about the trades that they've made, Kirby Dach, Patrick Laine, Alex Newhook, the Matheson deal was fine. The Alexander Carrier deal was decent, getting him for basically,
Carrier they stole.
Right. But the big moves that they made to add forwards to facilitate the playoff, that's been a disaster, and they did not shed off the dead weight of like Josh Anderson and Brendan Gallagher. So it's a mixed bag there. It really is.
It's tough because of especially in those last two where the contracts had already been negotiated already at that point. So you were always and again, I'm looking at Montreal much like with Philadelphia in that you're trying to
Yeah.
You're in an era where you're sort of you were in a transitional thing where you were trying to get to move things along with your prospects to the next part, to the next level. And now that's just, we'll see.
Yeah. I think as far as Martin St. Louis asking for more urgency out of Slafkovsky, like he'll get a little better, but this is why I didn't think he was a number 1 overall pick.
Right.
Like, again, he's a nice player. He's not a superstar player. And they they decided this is the guy we want.
It may look better for them, Russ, since I think Seattle screwed up Shane Wright a little bit with the yo-yoing that they did.
No, but he had 44 points last year. He was 7 points behind Slafkovsky, so I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyhow.
Maybe a little bit about camps, what we've seen so far.
Yeah, that's fine.
So I'll start off real quick. So, Flyers camp, obviously yesterday they had their scrimmage. This is their 3rd day of camp. Did something unique. They did sessions in this case, starting off with special teams first. I can't remember that, during Torts' time, the focus on doing special teams as one of the primary things that they did to watch sort of the initial. We got to look at what is probably going to be, in all likelihood, a starting power play unit for the Flyers with Sean Couturier, Konechny, Michkov, with Drysdale and Zegras out there. So we got a little bit of a look at that. Mm-hmm. One thing's definitely for sure, the penalty killing units. It was a case where the power plays were definitely still figuring out the concepts, whereas the PK I thought did a pretty good job. And then the scrimmage was what it was. Not a lot of goal scoring, just one by Alexis Gendron, but got some. I thought Nikita Grabenkin flashed a bit in this one, Russ, probably a little bit more so than he did in the rookie series. I mean, we all talked about the points he got in the rookie series.
He has those moments. It's just that's the weird thing about him.
He had a better. I thought he was better defensively because for me, for the points he got in Lehigh in against the Rangers, I could point to multiple moments defensively where he was. This one, he looked a lot better. Again, understandably, he's being put on the line with Sean Couturier and Matvei Michkov. Right. You better be engaged. You better look better. Make a good impression. So I think he did a pretty good job. Bump was solid, I think, in this case, playing on the line that he was on with Zegras at times. I think Grabenkin in some ways maybe, at least if we're going stock up right now, Grabenkin in terms of because of the fact that Grabenkin can probably fit in more into a 4th line role.
Right.
Up and down the lineup, whereas Bump, you need to be specific with a scoring line. If he doesn't do anything in preseason, then in my opinion,
you got to send him down.
You do send him to Lehigh. So that's just my take from yesterday.
Okay. Mike, what about in Buffalo?
Okay, I'll do the Leafs and the Sabres quickly here. With the Leafs, right now it's essentially the Stolar's contract extension, which I think we talked about before.
You did.
It sounds like it's going to get done, but there's no indication of how long and how much. If anything more than 3 years, anything more than $4.5 million, I don't think is a good deal. But
I agree.
We'll see what they do. On defense, Morgan Riley came into camp 6 pounds lighter. Berube loves what he sees out of him. He's the number 1. He's the point man on the power play, which I knew that was going to happen. It made too much sense for that to happen. Up front, they put Maselli on the number 1 line right now because Domi was dinged up at the beginning of camp, but I do think Domi's now back. And I think probably they'll move Maselli down to the 2nd or 3rd line. There are a few tweaking injuries, but nothing of major consequence. It's just, it's getting into the regular season and seeing how this team adjusts without Marner. And that'll be the narrative for most of the year. With the Sabres, it's sort of deja vu all over again, Russ, because Lindy Ruff and Kevin Adams come into camp and they say, when asked about, well, you didn't really replace JJ Peterka. And they ask, and they says, well, we need to play better defense. Okay, this is the same thing that you said 2 years ago with Don Granato as the head coach. And here's the problem: they did play better defense, but they stopped scoring. They scored almost 300 goals the year before when they missed the playoffs by a point. They played better defensively, but at the sacrifice of their offense. And I said all that year, this team can't walk and chew gum at the same time. That's the problem. Now, if they all of a sudden be able to play a more two-way game, they have some different players, then then I give them a chance. But what they are expecting, Russ, is they're expecting Zach Benson and Jack Quinn to step up into higher scoring roles.
Okay, maybe they do. They're expecting Josh Norris to stay healthy. Okay. What are they expecting in net, Mike?
Well, yeah, I was getting to that.
Okay,
they're expecting Mike. Exactly. They're expecting Michael Kesselring, who was basically a bottom or a 4-5 with Utah, to be a number 4 playing with Owen Power, meaning he's going to play 20 minutes a night, and the left-right combo might be good, and he's big and he's tough, but I don't know whether he's a number 4. They're expecting that, and they're expecting, and we don't know about Luukkonen because we haven't seen Luukkonen. It's been Alex Lyon and Georgiev in the number 1 group, and Devin Levi. He is going to Rochester because he's 21 games away from being waiver exempt. It doesn't even look like he's getting a legitimate chance to make the NHL this year, which makes me question whether they think he's an NHL goalie anymore. They say all the right things. They say, "Oh, we still believe in Devin Levi." Well, if you believed in Devin Levi, where the hell is he?
I mean, are you trying to tell me the guys you have in net?
No, what I'll say about Devin Levi is this: his new goat head gear looks fantastic. Please continue.
Yeah. I was just going to say this. Look, Lindy's falling on the old Georgiev. Like, Georgiev hasn't looked good in 3 years.
Okay.
So you're trying to tell me Devin Levi can't do what Georgiev might do or probably isn't going to do? Well, and then my other question is, which I don't expect anybody from the media to fire back with, but this is what I just throw out there. If the Sabres are really thinking they're going to be a playoff team, who exactly would they replace in the playoffs that made it last year? I don't think there's a team that they could replace.
They're thinking Montreal, number 1.
Yeah, I was there. You're depending on the regression of the Canadiens and the Senators. I think less the Senators because I think unless Omar
the Senators are much more solid.
Everything has to go right. Norris has to stay healthy. Thompson has to score 50 goals. And the defense has to play well, and they have to get good goaltending, and they have to depend on Montreal and maybe Ottawa. That's too many ifs there. So there.
Yeah, that's like me expecting touchdowns out of Tyrod Taylor today. Like, like listen, you kind of know what you get.
If it happens, Russ, then you can have joy.
Then I'll be happy, and if it doesn't, I'll be like, that's what I expected.
You'll be like me.
I don't know if it'll be like you. I've never seen you throw a football. Like, I don't know what you mean.
No, I mean bitter.
Tight spiral, Russ. Come on, you know that. That thing's like a John Elway bullet.
I'm a lefty like Dan Pastorini and Ken Staples.
I like Dan Pastorini. He was good.
You didn't go Steve Young or Michael Vick, I know.
Mark Brunell. There you go.
Mark Brunell. That was a good one. Brunell was fun. Those Jags teams were fun. Those were fun teams to watch.
Yeah. That was actually the best Jet game I ever went to live was when the Jets beat Brunell in 98. When he was at the height of his game. Then, of course, when Mark Brunell wasn't at the height of his game, he became a Jet. And that's it for Off the Post. We'll catch everybody next time.
Take care, everybody.